And it is that time once again. It is time for One Fall. I am Sean Stanley, as always, joined by Jaccare Givens and Johnathan Ramlakan. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Doing fantastic.
You're feeling good. A good week of wrestling.
It was a good week of wrestling. I want to start the show, though, first off with condolences out to the families of Bobby Eaton and also to Jody Hamilton. Beautiful Bobby Eaton, known for his Midnight Express days with Dennis Condrey, Stan Lane, and then also the Dangerous Alliance with Rick Rude, Stone Cold, Larry Zbyszko, and all them, and then also the Blue Bloods with Lord Steven Regal. And then Jody Hamilton, a little bit older. He used to be the Assassins. He was Assassin number 1, and then he was a trainer at the power plant, and then he actually ended up opening Deep South Wrestling from 2005 to 2007, which ended up being a WWE developmental area at that time. And then also his son is referee Nick Patrick. So condolences out to the families, friends, and loved ones for beautiful Bobby and Jody Hamilton. Jaccare, I don't know your age. I mean, I know my age, and I know where I'm at on that scale. I've seen Bobby Eaton work, and I loved everything he did. Jody Hamilton, I caught the tail end of his in-ring career. I did see him manage with Paul Orndorff and Paul Roma and some of them in WCW days. Jaccare, were you able to see anything with Bobby Eaton? Were you even watching wrestling at that time or anything like that?
Nah, man. But anytime anybody dies, as always, prayers goes out to the family, man. I'm sorry, that's such a sad experience. I hope their families, give the best grievance process as possible. I can't really put it into words. Whenever you lose a loved one, it's tough. So, prayers up to those families. It's not really easy to talk about either. Prayers up to those families.
Johnathan, anything to add? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were definitely before my time. But they obviously were building blocks into what we know as professional wrestling today. And for any wrestler that passes away, these guys put their bodies on the line just for our entertainment. They do insane things just so to put a smile on people's face and get a cheer out of them, right? So whenever somebody passes away in this business, it's really tough because they pass away doing what they loved for us. So we're always appreciative. Like what Jaccare said, man, all the condolences to both of the families. May we remember these guys' legacy by keeping their names alive.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tag teams that have patterned themselves after the Midnight Express. Beautiful Bobby, actually one of the top rope. If you want to look at a pioneer of the top rope, he did the top rope leg drop and some other moves there. But definitely a sad day. He passed away at the age of 62, so still a young man. But we roll on here on One Fall. We're going to get into the discussion of the day. AEW reportedly has a lot of talent acquisitions, which are heading in. If you listen to the reports, we've already seen Malachi Black. You name it. There's some others already there. Andrade.
Ruby Riott.
Yeah, supposedly Ruby Riott's on the way. Or Ruby Soho, however you want to look at the name now. Supposedly the Iconics are on the way there. You got everybody wanting Bray Wyatt to go there now since Bray Wyatt has been released. Who else? CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Adam Cole, since his contract looks like it's going to end around SummerSlam. Another contract that came up today, Pete Dunn, supposedly will be done around the same time as Adam Cole. Now, I'm not saying all of them are going over there, but to make this a discussion, if they were to sign a lot of these guys, how do you keep everybody happy with a 2-hour? Right now, you got 2 hours for AEW Dynamite. You'll get another 2 hours for Rampage. That'll be 4 hours of TV. And then you still have your Dynamite. I'm sorry, you still have your Dark and your Dark Elevation shows if you so use them in that way. But
But none of those guys are signing for Dark and Dark Elevation.
I totally agree with you. That was going to be my whole part of the thing was, how do you keep them happy, but then also at the same time, because they're not there yet and your roster is full, those 2 hours are action-packed. It's not like they're fluffing a lot of time there right now on Dynamite and everything else. How do you keep those performers happy? And then who do you push to the back burner if you are to bring in some of these acquisitions?
Jaccare, you can go first, man. Tell me your thoughts on how you feel with it.
At that point, you kind of go to a WWE and WCW model, right? Like those guys had so much talent back then. You know, certain guys get thrown under the bus. Uh, you look at, for instance, a Daniel Bryan, for instance, who kind of got his break after certain guys left, right? You look at a Randy Orton, who's to say he would have got a chance had Stone Cold not retired? Like, what if those guys would have stayed around? Those guys got chances because those guys left. The John Cena's of the world, the Randy Ortons, those guys got chances because the higher ups, the Rocks, who went to the movies. Stone Cold retired because of his neck injury. Edge neck injury. So it's like, what do you go with it? And it's like you're to the point where it's too much, right? And it's sort of what WWE goes through. Like, they have so much talent, but it's like we can't see everybody on TV 3 hours, 2 hours, 5 hours of wrestling a week. Adam Cole, if he signs that, he's not going to no dark elevation. Like, we're on the main TV show. We're a main event roster guy. WWE kind of has a leg up because they have, 3 hours of live television. I mean, no, I'm sorry. They have 7 hours. 2 with Smackdown, 2 with NXT, and 3 with wrestling. So all those guys shouldn't go there, but you never know. AEW can throw the bag at you, and it's kind of like a money grab. So you'll see. Now, will they make time? Then you got to think about a guy like a Darby who's making the ascension. Where does he fit in that picture? Even the Hangman Page of the world, does he drop down to the mid card? You look at Mero, who's he's doing some great stuff right now. Does he drop down? So it's a lot of guys who are gonna like move. Sting would probably be out of the way at that point. You even look at John Moxley, right? John Moxley would probably not be in the picture as much either. When you add those guys, when you're adding names of CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Adam Cole, these are main event guys who are gonna get TV time. So you're thinking about guys who are gonna drop. Even our top guys who we're loving right now in AEW, they're gonna come down.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, right? Everybody's going to have to take a step down. And I just want to get to these 2 comments real quick. TMS_FN, appreciate you joining us, first of all, saying CM Punk is going to be paid $5 million a year. I didn't know that was the number.
I haven't heard that number, but
I haven't heard that number, but I'm sure
gonna get paid. I'm sure.
Yeah, you're CM Punk, you get paid. And if he stays 1 year, that's good business on his side, in my opinion. There's a multitude of ways that you can use CM Punk. He could be just that big match kind of guy. But as far as my opinion, I feel like the way that AEW is built, they can handle it, right? They're getting an extra hour with the Rampage show. And like we said, they have the dark and they have the elevation. Obviously, they're not signing main event talent to go wrestle over there. But they do utilize those shows. You will see, guys like Darby Allin, Eddie Kingston, John
But do
Moxley.
you want to see those guys on that show, though? That's a question, though, Jonathan.
Not necessarily, but what they do really well is they build matches to actually have significance, right? Matches aren't just thrown. I mean, sometimes obviously that's it's the nature of the business, but they build matches in a way where they build it for 2-3 weeks. They cut promos. Like, look how they're using Andrade, right? He's on TV for maybe a minute or 2 minutes, and it's very impactful. You don't need everybody to be wrestling every week, but with the extra show and with how they're doing it, I think they can do it, as well as I can see them. I've heard talks maybe a trios title coming as well. That's another thing they can push, as well as have that trios title. So I do think, some of the talent is going to get pushed down. But what AEW is going to do, what they're doing with Darby Allin, they're going to match up those outside talents with the inside talents and kind of do it that way. They're not going to go bring in, CM Punk and Bray Wyatt and then Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt and then throw them against each other. They're going to put Bray Wyatt against, somebody else, maybe with the dark, versus the Dark Order, and they'll put Daniel Bryan against somebody else. So I think they have a lot of ways to go. They build stories really well. They make matches mean something. I think they can handle it.
Yeah, but here's my one counterpoint to that, Jonathan, is the fact that they build the stories. It happens on your dark and your dark elevations usually. That time is not going to be there as much as when you're doing and you have all these talents. And again, this is saying they sign all of these talents, not saying all of them have been signed, but you lose that time. And time is money, especially when you're looking at the TNT part of it. their dark and their and their dark elevations. That's their YouTube channel. They can kind of play with that as they want. But my worry is this: you bring them in, and yes, you have to pair them probably with somebody else. But with everything that everybody has done so far to build up your Darby Allins, your MJFs, your Adam Pages, your all these guys that have never, quote unquote, been to the big time as far as WWE and things like that. Now, do they become bait for these big sharks that you're bringing in now? Because that just kind of obliterates everything you did the past 2 years. Everything you've done and built these guys up, you're going to ruin by ending up feeding them to your Daniel Bryans, your CM Punks, your Adam Coles, and things like that. That's the part that it's a slippery slope. And I'm not saying that they've done nothing to show me that they are going to do that, but that's one of the things they're going to have to manage. Because so far, everything they've done, minus a pizza cutter on Domino's and a Max Caster wrap, everything else they've done has been pretty good to this point for AEW. Now it's going to be interesting to see how do they bring all this talent in? The Malachi Black the other night, that was one of the things I thought they did it perfectly. Cody's been perfect in those roles with Brody and with him.
Yeah, but you have to think he would be a guy who would go down, right? Similar to what he was in WWE, because you're not. Let's just be an average wrestling fan who does not watch wrestling every time, right? You know your top names: The Reigns, Cena, Adam Cole, Daniel Bryan. You know your top guys. The average fan is not gonna tune in on a Wednesday night to see Malachi Black. But I would tune in to see a Daniel Bryan or Adam Cole, right? You're not going to tune in for that. So you have to it's a slippery slope because you're bending Malachi back up. He signed with you for that reason, right? Because you can offer him something WWE was not offering him anymore.
Yeah,
so I think they have to make the right signings. And it's similar to any basketball team, football. How many times have you seen a team just sign all the good talent and they be successful, right? So you have to kind of be careful with that. I think a Daniel Bryan and CM Punk is not as good, right? But adding a Adam Cole and a Bray Wyatt, that's not good because you're gonna have to pit those guys against each other at some point, and we've seen that already, right? We've seen Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan. We've seen CM Punk. We haven't seen CM Punk and Bray Wyatt, but you've seen CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, right? Adam Cole is another guy. Like, we've seen these matches already. So it's kind of like they're going to get pit against each other right now because you're trying to sell tickets. You're trying to sell people on your product. So eventually you're going to match those guys up. So they have to make the right signings. It's more about the right signings than it is, making the impact signings. Like, I've always been.
And also it's about debuting them, how they debut them. They don't have to bring them. They can sign all of them today. They don't have to bring them all in tomorrow.
They can stagger them.
They need to kind of do this. And like you're saying, Jaccare, I think if they were to bring them all in together at the same time, you cannot, I think, get away with not pairing them against each other, or at least a few of them. As you're saying, because again, you want the big names and the big money. Moxley, Omega, that was the big thing. But it actually was Moxley and Jericho at the beginning, if you remember, kind of, setting up things like that. So AEW to me has done the right things. And real quick, I want to get into what TMSFN said about Jim Cornette. I don't listen to a whole lot of Jim Cornette. I do listen to him every once in a while. But, he does have a lot of things to say. But again, he's been in wrestling for so long. It's believe half of what I see and nothing of what I hear. And that's kind of how I listen to that show. Although the stories are great and I love those stories. And then back to what we were talking about was my worry though is when you've watched everything that's happened with MJF, probably to me, one of the better heels right now in wrestling right now. I mean, Roman Reigns is heels higher and levels above of what MJF's doing right now. But when you watch what he's done, it's because I feel like they're not worried about somebody taking their position. And this is where, when I said it's a slippery slope, is when you start bringing in more people and you start taking people out of TV time, Now things can start getting a little bit political. And then you're vying for that time, and then you're doing this, and then this person's saying this, and then that's where that locker room starts becoming what you saw at WCW, what you saw at WWE for a little while, and things like that. That I think would hurt them more. And when you talked about ratings, Jaccare, this really caught me off guard. Raw did a 1.8 again this week. AEW I thought would go up. They went down half a percentage point. They stayed up right at 1.10, and they were at 1.15 last week. So,
but they don't have the
it's
names.
not showing up on the ratings.
Yeah, they don't have the names, and it's like I said, AEW is a better product right now, and nobody can refute that point. If anybody argues to me and say WWE is better right now, besides probably two things, WWE's done a great job with Roman Reigns and John Cena, and they're doing a good job with Edge and Seth Rollins.
Right.
Those are guys who have creative control over what they do, right? Like, they're doing a great job with that. But for AEW to take the next step, they have to sign a prominent woman figure so they can get those viewers, because they're not getting those viewers at all, because we're not watching them for women's wrestling. And they have to make those two signings. Bryan and Punk will put their numbers up higher. But are those guys going to be on TV every week? I doubt it. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not going to sign. Like, those guys, it puts AEW back in WWE's position. So those guys will be getting released from AEW to go back to WWE because they can have the power that they want. They signed with AEW for the power. Like, hey, I'm signing with AEW because I can be Malachi Black and do what I want to do. I can't do that at WWE. I was Aleister Black. They had me with some dumb, gimmick with my eye pulled out. You know what I mean? So that's why they went to AEW. So you're going to tell those guys, I came here to be a star, but now I'm about to downgrade to a, mid-card to lower level, guy, second hour guy. Like, no, I don't want to be that. I want to be a main event guy. You see they put Malachi Black in a prominent role against Cody Rhodes. Probably going to be Cody Rhodes' retiring match eventually. Like, that's a big spot. Cody Rhodes has been in the game a long time. He has a huge name. So you're telling me, like, if they sign a CM Punk and Cody Rhodes say, hey, I want to work with CM Punk, what do you think they're going to do with the Malachi Black story? It's going to dissipate. We're going to put him against CM Punk.
No, 100%.
The way I can see them doing it and making it work, right? Well, first of all, I feel like I have a little bit extra trust in TK and the management over there because they've already managed it so well. But I feel like the two ways they can make it work is kind of like what Sean said, right? Stagger the way they're doing it. I think they're doing a really good job with that right now. Where they're not, like we said, they're not bringing everybody in all at once. But if they bring one guy in, maybe every other, 6 weeks, every 2 months, now you're, slowly introducing these guys in. And by the end of the year, these guys are all introduced, right? You don't have to put them in there all at once. So I think they can do that. I think that'll be a better way they can manage it.
But still, AEW is still going against a 30-year brand, right? They're 2 years in. So they're going to debut those guys because they're trying to become the next power. So WCW was faltering because they were giving us main event matches on Monday Night Nitro, right? When Vince was building it up for so long that, hey, I would pay the $49.95 to watch on pay-per-view a Goldberg versus a Sting, then that. So you're gonna debut those guys. It's kind of like having that shiny new toy. You're gonna give that toy away over the new one. So it's like they're gonna go wrong. They can go wrong with the signings, but they can't go wrong because it's like I want to see those guys wrestle, but it's like I don't see Adam Cole going there because I don't think he'll fit in. So a lot of those guys are just gonna use AEW as leverage anyway. Like the more realistic guys is the two we named, Punk and Bryant, and they have to sign Ruby Riott because Ruby Riott is a fucking star. She is a star. She's a great wrestler. Great mic stuff. I love what she does, and I think they have to attack the women's to get a more balanced viewership.
Yeah, I think with the women's too is I think where they've kind of gone wrong, and I know they're trying to do the Forbidden Door and all this stuff, but I feel like it's almost the NWA is the women's like Forbidden Door. They're bringing in Camille now. You see them. It was Thunder Rosa at the beginning, and then the guys. It's everybody, right? It's Impact. It's New Japan. I don't think we've seen anybody from NWA yet, so maybe not everybody, but I feel like that's where they're trying to make the thing. And one thing I wanted to say, Jonathan, was one thing you just said a couple minutes ago is that you trust that they're going to do the same thing because you trust in what they're doing, right? But that's the same thing we were saying about Vince McMahon and WWE when they beat WCW. And now I get it. That was like 15, 20 years ago. But it's the same. It's almost this vicious cycle is wrestling. It is a vicious cycle. It comes in, it goes. You get these companies that come in. Impact has been around for a while. People forget about it. I mean, that was TNA. They were running.
They had some guys, man.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Bobby Roode,
Jeff Hardy.
Remember the Man of the Mafia over there that they had? That was a beautifully played.
But I'm even going back before that. They used to run weekly pay-per-views in the Nashville Asylum, and they would debut. You know, Ken Shamrock was the champion, and then R-Truth became the champion, and they would do weekly pay-per-views for $9.99 a week. You would pay $9.99, you could order that week's pay-per-view, and they'd bring out the big names. Dusty would make appearances on it. They'd have surprise appearances. Of course, you got to see, you know, your James Storms back then, which was America's Most Wanted. You saw all these guys that you weren't seeing anywhere else. Low Key, some of these other competitors, and I think the other thing that I'm worried about is AEW has this open relationship with all these companies. You can't keep bringing in other people's company if your roster is getting so filled up that there's not even enough room for your talent to be on TV, much less now you're throwing the IWGP US title. Who are you bumping off your roster to make sure the IWGP title gets defended? So I think some of that stuff is going to take some of that luster of what we love about AEW right now and kind of start bringing it down a little bit as far as from a fan perspective. Not every fan, again, because in some fans right now, WWE still does no wrong. AEW does no wrong. You're going to have those fans. But when you're starting to, you know, the Forbidden Door, which was big for AEW to me, it was one of the things that kind of like, oh, wait, this is something new. They're bringing in all these guys. You don't know who's going to show up, so you kind of tune in just because you don't know who's going to show up. What does that remind you of? NWO, the Attitude, the Invasion era. Again, all these things are recycled differently, but it's the same concepts that keep going over and over. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do this, because this is the first time I can ever remember that this many people have been let go, high-level wrestlers from the WWE, to flourish out on their own.
Well, it's a more of an open market now, though. Think about it. Like, you got the indies. These guys don't need WWE to make money anymore. You have your Twitch channels. It's so many open income areas. So I don't see, like, you know what I mean? Those guys will do better. Like a Bray Wyatt is going to do great anyway without WWE. He can sell. He's going to do great in the indies. Appearances, you know, he probably going to be charging $250,000 an appearance or something like that. You know, it's a crazy number, right?
Well, it also depends on the likeness. Who owns the likeness of the Bray Wyatt character?
Yeah. So
again, some of that, you might have to redo some of that character work.
Yeah, and if he's on his own likeness, and if he owns the Fiend's likeness, but I think WWE. I think WWE owns the Fiend likeness, though, if I wasn't mistaken. You know, they're still selling his merch there. So you're looking at a guy like that. So those guys make way more money. You think about a Braun Strowman, he hasn't had, you know, any appearances lately, but he's another guy that can make money off so those contracts are not bad, but you have to think about it in the sense of you're gonna make way more money doing your own thing. It was sort of with the Selena Vega. She didn't want to delete her OnlyFans or whatever earlier in the contract dispute because she was making way more money on that than in her contract. So, you know, those guys are making more money. It's sort of like the New Day. The New Day won't turn heel because we're gonna make more money as face. You know, I got my
selling
game
unicorn
and
on.
all that. So I think the contracts now, when people sign with WWE, AEW, it's gonna be the freedom to make outside money that probably pushes you over the top.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Sorry, go, Jonathan. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, to bounce off that point, there's just more of an open market now, like he was saying, right? You're before the indies kind of were very quiet, but I think with AEW, it's kind of become a center place for all the indie places because now because of AEW, like I watch a little bit more New Japan, you watch a little more TNA, it brings you into different types of it brings you into different markets as well. So like what Jaccare saying, man, with more exposition being everywhere, with online being there, right? 15 years ago, you wouldn't really see much stuff. Just you can just go on the internet and you can stream it, right? You had to go on cable and you had to buy these things on cable. Buying things online is much easier now. So these independent wrestling companies, I mean, we saw what Matt Cardona is doing right now, right? He left and now he's becoming a little bit more of a well-known name. I mean, obviously not as big as WWE, but he's still creating his own character. So with these options and with these people being able to have more choices and do something maybe on what their personal preferences, and they're not forced to do just one thing with WWE, I think that's why you're seeing a little bit more people leave now.
And also the one-offs are gonna help people too. So hey, WWE's giving me a contract where I can, or AEW's giving me a contract. I can compare 2 times a year and make 40 million, $2-3 million. Like I have that leverage now because I built such a strong name outside of wrestling. So that's I know with the legends, that's why they're legends, right? Because they're able to bring in numbers with fewer appearances. Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, Ric Flair, right? Like why are we keeping those guys on giving them TV time? Because people still appeal to those people. So I think the contracts now at AEW, I think that's the reason why people are signing with AEW is the chance to make more money outside of wrestling because they allow them to go to every company. New Japan, what I mean? I can go over to Japan and make $2, $3, $4 million just wrestling.
Yeah. And I wonder, now that you said that, and I wasn't even thinking of this, but it kind of popped in my head when you said they could do tours of New Japan as you're bringing in these guys, the ones that want to go to Japan. Hey, you're going from this time to this time, and now you're taking a little bit off that roster, right? You're sending some guys over to New Japan to work over there for a few months or at a time, and then you bring them back, almost kind of what WCW was doing for a little bit when they first started their kind of deal with, I think it was All Japan at the time they were working with. They would send 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 wrestlers over there, and then they would get it like a talent exchange in a way. Then you'd bring in new blood, and then they'd come back, and then so forth and so forth. And I agree with you on the contracts. The only thing is, it's going to be interesting because we saw Vince McMahon change when Kevin Nash and Scott Hall did their thing and kind of changed the guarantee money market. Now, Vince was very against the third party. He actually went out and took away everybody's third parties. Now, I don't see him going back anytime soon. I may be wrong on this and being like, okay, guys, you know what? I don't want anybody else to leave. Here's your third party money back, your Twitch channels. You guys go out and do your stuff, because if you watch it now, I think the only one that's still going is what up, up, down, down, really right now is the only one with Xavier Woods. And that's more almost WWE-ish than it's not
I
anymore.
don't think he would be in a vicarious position at that point because I think that they would leave WWE if he told them to get rid of it. Like,
yeah, no, I thought, and also he's with the G4, what's the gaming network, G4, right? Isn't that the network, gaming network? So again, he brings that different crowd over there, but you see a lot of the stuff is WWE based. His you got Adam Cole on there, Cesaro, Jake Maverick, some of the other guys that are in there. So it'll be interesting to see if he does change with the contracts. And the other thing is they got to start figuring out when these guys' contracts are up. Adam Cole apparently was on a deal to where he got extended for just till after SummerSlam. Now we find Pete Dunne's contracts coming up, and apparently they found these two out at the same time. It's just now coming out that Pete Dunne's is the same way because and the person that was in charge of that, I believe it was Seaman Canyon, has been fired. He's, of course, been let go. But, I mean, the fact that you don't know when your superstar's contract, especially guys like, look, I mean, I get it. Somebody might fall through the cracks. I understand that. That might happen. But you're talking about Adam Cole, a guy who you've almost kind of built the NXT brand, who kind of
he's the face of the brand.
NXT, right? And then Pete Dunne, who is the guy that you're almost kind of making he was originally, I thought, going to be the face over there at NXT UK, but then he came here and he's been, one of the top 5 stars for a while. And now all of a sudden you might lose him as well.
And on top of that, Adam Cole, I believe, has a no compete. There's no compete clause at the end of that contract.
Yeah.
So at the end of the 30 days, if he goes to AEW the next week, he can, obviously
not even next week. He could lose on Tuesday and show up on AEW Wednesday.
Can you imagine?
He could literally do it. There's no clause in his contract.
I don't see Adam Cole leaving WWE for 2 reasons. One, him and Kyle O'Reilly's relationship off screen is very strong. They're really good friends, so I don't see him leaving. And I think WWE is going to pay him handily to stay. He has leverage to the highest degree. Yeah. So, Pete Dunne will have leverage. And I think that they fit more in NXT than they would at AEW, because Pete Dunne's ceiling to me would be on the level with a Darby Allin, where he'll always be, a mid-card guy. Like, even though they try to make him a main event, he's always going to be there. Adam Cole is a little bit different. Obviously, he's Adam Cole, right? But where would you see him fitting at in AEW, right? You know what I mean? Especially with the signings.
I mean, he would be the MJF guy right now. He would be what MJF is. I mean, basically, that's what I could see that being Adam Cole, just like I see it being MJF right now.
Yeah. I do want to ask you guys before we switch over, Ronda Rousey with her tweet earlier, how did you guys feel about that? It was very asinine of her to say that. She's a little bit aloof when it comes to the wrestling world, and we know that because we seen her in the wrestling world. So how did you guys feel about that?
I mean, I feel like it was out of place, right? The WWE universe is supposed to have a voice, and I heard that they were piping in noise on Monday Night Raw, and
that with McIntyre, if you seen the clip with McIntyre coming in, you heard they made the mistake with having Michael Cole come in there and say, "Hey," in the 16th time.
What happened was they played the audio of the trailer for Cena Reigns at the same time. Somebody forgot to hit a button to keep it off of TV, so it played over the live loop as well. That's at least what WWE is trying to either paint this as, or however you want to look at it. It was not piped in. It was just somebody was listening to the audio and played it at the wrong time, apparently.
Interesting. But either way, I mean, Ronda Rousey's basically telling the WWE universe to shut up and just watch, right? And not to have a voice on the product. I mean, if the people want Bray Wyatt, the people want Bray Wyatt. I mean, he was, in my opinion, the reason I watched wrestling for about the last 3 years, or at least Monday Night Raw, was because of what Bray Wyatt was doing, man. He was interesting. He kept wrestling fresh. I mean, that's a personal opinion. He reminded me of what today's Undertaker could potentially be, right? If they built him right. But man, if people want Bray Wyatt, why is Ronda Rousey telling the crowd to shut up? That's how I feel on it.
Well, here's the one thing I will say about this is I can understand. I think she voiced it a little bit wrong, but the one thing that you have to understand is on the business side of WWE, Eddie Guerrero, right? Let's go back to when Eddie Guerrero, right? Everybody wanted him to win the title. Everybody was so happy he won the title. The problem was the live shows were not doing well with Eddie Guerrero as the champion. So now the fans love to see him on TV. They love everything about him, but they're not paying that money to go see him as the champion. So what happens? They take the belt off of him. And this is something that happens, I believe, a lot with the WWE universe and a lot with wrestling fans in general. Is you want to see something, then after you've seen it enough times, you kind of you almost feel entitled in a way. as a fan. And I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not saying, you know, what Rousey said was right and anything, but I think a lot of times what happens is yes, you voice your, but then you have to remember one thing too, is it's all about the money. It is all
Yeah,
about that dollar bill. If it doesn't matter, Vince doesn't care how many people boo him, how many people cheer him, but if nobody's going to buy that merchandise or nobody's showing up for live house shows and you're the champion, the belt's getting pulled off of you. If your
and it
merchandise isn't
goes
selling, that merchandise is getting pulled.
and it goes back to just, you know, the great basis of what people will warn with about Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt is a great act, but he's not that great. Like in wrestling, he's not that great of a wrestler. He's okay. You know, he's not really the best. He's not gonna put on you a 5-star match every time he gets out.
But he's in the perfect gimmick to do that, though.
Yeah, he's limited, right?
Mm-hmm.
And plus, the Undertaker warned us about this. He did in the interview back in 2020 at Survivor Series. He stated that he warned us that Bray Wyatt was about what was going to happen to Bray Wyatt, right? His expert said when you have people outside writing for you, sometimes they get a little carried away and you're just like, okay, let's do that. Undertaker said, I hope he stays really invested and says no when he has to say no and do what's right for that character, because it's really the strongest character WWE has right now, which we were talking about the Fiend at that point. So at that point, he was right about Bray Wyatt. A lot of the stuff that was going on with Wyatt was so outside the box that it didn't fit into WWE. Just like Undertaker character early on, he didn't fit into WWE. I think the fans just grew so much into him, we had to support him.
Yeah, and also he made minor changes too, right? The Undertaker made minor changes to kind of bring him into that role as he became the baby face and the different things, locking his hand in the casket and just minor things. The urn was a big telltale story back then, you know, when the Undertaker's first coming up. And I agree. I think sometimes fans and I think sometimes writers in general don't understand characters. And they think they're writing something good for somebody and they're not. And then what happens is that spoils it for the fans, and then the fans kind of get turned away from the character, right? You're gonna boo and you're gonna cheer. The problem goes to when you're not spending money. That's how WWE says whether you like somebody or not. They don't care if you cheer. If you're getting a response, that's great. But if they're not buying your merchandise or they're not tuning into pay-per-views or they're not watching live shows and getting your money, you're not doing what the WWE universe needs.
Yeah.
And I want to I real quick, can you bring up Anthony Manzano brought this up, and he said, if I'm not sure if this is true or not. Do you think there's a little bit of racism within wrestling fans that they don't want to see minority representation in terms of major championships? I think there is, but I think it's a lot less today than it was back before Ron Simmons won the title. Because I think up to that point, I don't think you could have expected a minority to hold a champion, world title.
And to defend them and not in a sense of the racism, it's not really racism. It's just who watches wrestling, right? Like a lot of Caucasian people watch wrestling. You know, you have a few black people and other races that watch, but majority when you go to wrestling shows, what do you see? You see a lot of Caucasian people. It's not nothing wrong with that. It's not nothing against that. If I was a business owner that's appealing to my crowd, I'm gonna sell what's appealing to my crowd. Now it does hurt WWE in this instance because now the crowd has changed, right? And they don't want to adapt to that change. So now you have the crowd that wants to see a Big E as champion, that wants to see the Kofi Kingstons of the world as champion. You want to see, Alberto Del Rio, when he was
Carrillo.
when he was doing the right thing. You want to see those guys as champion. You want to see Rey Mysterio as champion because it's more appealing to the crowd now, right? So that's kind of where you're at, Anthony. Why the wrestling business in WWE is hurting because they don't want to change towards the crowd. Vince McMahon doesn't want to change towards the crowd.
Yeah.
They had a superstar, but he messed it up in Velveteen Dream, right? He was going to be the next guy up as the star. So it's just he has to change towards the crowd. It's just like the game of basketball. It's changed now where it's more three-point shooting. We want to see more offense, right? Back then, when you had the Michael Jordans of the world, we want to see more of a defense, physical game where I rough you up, right? It's just like in football. They kind of taking the aggressiveness out of football, right? We want to see the offense is just going up and down the field, like pace and space, 60 to 60 games, and you taking away that physicality. So once the crowds change, it's just how life goes. It changes every day. So it's not nothing against, it's not racism. It's not none of that. It's just it's the change of a guard. Like this generation is different. This generation of wrestling is different than the generation which I grew up watching, right? We had, and this is day society's a little bit more sensitive guy, like people. So we like in my generation, we weren't as sensitive to the product than now. Like WWE's, like think about AEW and WWE, like you don't see them do some of the things they did back then, right? You don't see some of those skits. You don't see some of those jokes.
The profiling.
Right? Yeah, so you don't see it anymore. But WWE is starting to do better. You have a black champion in Bianca Belair. You have Sasha Banks. Big E is in position to be a champion.
Bobby Lashley is the WWE champion.
Roman Reigns is he's
Apollo
black.
Crews.
Someone in black. He's not. You know what I'm saying? So he's appealing towards the crowd. So they're trying to, but at the same time, it goes back to money. Like I'm with you on that. Like I'm gonna appeal towards what's making me money. You don't appeal towards what's not making you money just to make society happy.
And that's also the thing too is the talent now. When you look at the talent that's out there now compared to what it was back in the 80s, 90s, it's a lot more athletic. And there's a lot more minorities. There is now. The pool of minorities is a lot. There used to be, and again, this going back in 70s and 80s, a different whole time frame. Whereas you had Junkyard Dog come in, and he was your big baby face. That was your big baby face. Junkyard Dog would travel everywhere, and he'd come in here and team up with Dusty Rhodes. He'd go to Georgia and team up with whoever there. Go over to New Orleans, and it was almost like attractions in a way. Now you're seeing the talent. They're allowing the talent. And that's like you're saying. Yes, Reggie with the 24. He's Reggie now, not Reginald. Reggie with the 24/7 title. Bianca Belair. I mean, the sky's the limit for her, honestly. I don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to get the belt off of her and keep the belt off of her and everything else. But, man, to me, she's money just walking. There's just so much you could do with her.
Belair, she's like
they better have the ponytail better already be out right now. The ponytail so people can buy it at the stands and swing it around. That needs to be out there already.
I love Sasha Banks as a wrestler and I love what she's done, but Belair is money. Like and to be honest, like I said, Vince is trying. I cannot not give him credit because he's tried. Because it was back then at a point where Bianca Belair would never have gotten TV time, right?
Yeah.
So now she's getting the TV time. And even with Sasha Banks, he kind of realized that with Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks, he realized, and Bayley taking race out of, he realized that those people were not what we were trying to sell them as. You look at Charlotte, he wanted her to be this true baby face, but she sucked at it, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have it. You look at Bayley with the inflatable. To make that change, because they were making money off the merchandise. We cannot deny they wasn't making money off of it. To make that change, that's showing that you understand.
Yeah. No, 100%. I want to go through some of the other comments. Curvin Abreu put in WWE never build new talent, always bring back the old wrestling. And it goes back to, I think, also with going back to when we were talking about Ronda Rousey's statement, right? For some reason, and maybe it's the nostalgia effect, but when they bring back those legend nights, they're doing 2.3, 2.4, when regularly they're doing 1.8. So again, if it's making them money, they're going to keep doing it. I don't think it's necessarily they don't want to build new talent. I just think they get into a rut to where it is, oh shit, what are we going to do? Oh, let's bring the legends back because they're going to bring us in ratings. And again, WWE is a publicly traded company, so you have to keep numbers. It's not just, hey, whatever you want to do and then throw out whatever. They're a publicly traded company. They have to keep certain numbers, or the chairman of the board could no longer be the chairman of the board. So how could that happen if Vince McMahon is voted out as far as being the chairman of the board of a company that he's running?
Nostalgia sells, man. Like nostalgia, people want to see nostalgia, and like you said, it's a balancing act, right? Because you're balancing trying to build new talent while, like you said, keeping the numbers and the ratings up, and you can't do both simultaneously, right? You have to be doing kind of one at a time. So I see where it's tough for WWE because they're, like you said, a publicly traded company. It's a little bit tougher for them to build that new talent because they have to work with what they have. They have to work with what sells. I mean, that's kind of why John Cena was on top for a long time, a little bit even past what he wanted, but they keep who's on top, and they bring back who you need just to make those guys a little bit better. So I feel like, it's a little bit of a balancing act. I feel NXT should have been what they're using to bring that new talent up, but they're really not doing a good job with using that NXT as a developmental brand. They're using it kind of, making somebody start back from the bottom, but these guys should be coming in right away and at least being mid-card, top-tier mid-card talents right away.
All right, I know we're running a little bit late, so I want to do a couple more things real quick. John Cena, the way they booked that, did you both watch the Smackdown this week with John Cena and the contract signing?
Beautifully done. Also, I know we're about to do our thumbs up and thumbs down segment, but that segment was beautifully done, and I like how they added all the stuff in, with it. Seeing John Cena, he signed with the Sharpie, kind of, bringing that, and then I love it, man. I love to see him do that. It kind of threw a twist into the act because we all were expecting, we knew it was gonna happen, but at the same time, get that scene of that, John Cena having to kind of steal the booking was kind of cool. And different from the acts we've seen from him in the past, like where they're just giving him the, the rundown, like, hey, John, this is your spot.
I felt like they could have done it a little bit better, right? I mean, if you're just talking about a legally signed contract, you can't sign where somebody else's name is. It just felt a little bit illegitimate to me. And now you kind of put Finn Balor in a spot now. Where is he going to be feuding with Baron Corbin? Like, is that what they're doing with that? So I felt like they could have built it a little bit better. If they wanted to give us a twist, have John Cena come out during the tag team match, with the Usos and rail both of the Usos, right? Throw them into the crowd or, destroy both of them on a table, have them do something and make the twist a little bit different. A contract stealing. I don't know. That's wrong. I think our lawyers might want to say something about that too.
No, I mean, I thought it was a good twist though. I did when I was like, oh, okay, all right. Because, and here's the one thing too, if you want to know how, like some of these wrestling reporters or dirt sheets, whatever you want to call them, get things. There's two of them that put out the story about John Cena going to be away at SummerSlam. Only two, by the way. I went back and checked it out. So obviously they got the story planted to get that out there so that when this happened and Finn Balor all of a sudden is sent out as the new challenger, I was like, okay, this is a smooth way to kind of gloss over that, hey, Cena's going to miss SummerSlam and now throw Finn Balor in there. Everybody's going to want to be happy for Finn Balor and get his chance at the title. Not too bad. It kind of evens out a little bit. Then when I see Corbin attacks Balor, and then I saw Cena come out and look at the contract, I was like, tell me they're not going to do this. Tell me they're not going to do this. And of course they do it. I thought it was good as far as being in the moment. But again, if you want to break it down and go into legalities and technicalities and things like that, yeah, there's some things there, but again, could that be played out even longer before SummerSlam? They've got three more shows, I think.
Yeah.
SummerSlam, possibly 2 or 3 more shows. So again, that could be played out. But the only problem I had with it was, as you alluded to, what happens to Finn Balor now? You bring him back in. He looks like he's going to be going for the title, and now, boom, back to NXT.
Right, I personally did like that that saying that that Roman Reigns was telling him like, I'm gonna just smash you and send you back to NXT. I
Yes.
love that. But like I said, you gotta take the small victories because they're trying. Their product has been okay. They've done some great things. They've done some bad things, but that was kind of money. Because you never know how that can go. Finn Balor can come back and interfere in the John Cena match. You never know how Baron Corbin can play a role. Because remember, Reigns is heel in this whole fiasco, so he can't play a role like that.
All right, real quick, we're gonna take 2 more questions and thumbs up, thumbs down, and we'll end this. Would you hypothetically, and this is very hypothetical because we know it's not going to happen, but Becky Lynch leaves WWE. What do you guys do to book her debut on AEW or Impact Wrestling? Real quick, guys.
AEW. I mean, you got to build a division around somebody. Nobody better than Becky Lynch.
Yeah, and I have her debut and win the title.
Yeah.
Have her debut and win the title over Britt Baker, just like that.
And hold it for a year.
She has to win the title. Like wherever she debuts at, she got to win the title. So
yeah, there's no question about that. If you bring her in and you're gonna have to pay her, one, if she leaves WWE, and you're gonna do that now.
If she leaves, you definitely know she's gonna be up in that $5 to $6 million a year range.
All right, and with this one with WWC infrastructure, that they didn't sign Tessa Blanchard, or because of her character issues, there's too much bad press around her. I think she's a great athlete. I think she's a good wrestler, but I think there's just too much bad press right now around Tessa Blanchard. I think ultimately you're going to see her either in NXT or AEW. But I just think right now, where there's smoke, there's probably fire, and you let that simmer down a little bit and then have her debut. You're starting to see her now throw out pictures and videos of her training up and coming wrestlers. You're seeing that move a little bit, change a little bit as far as her reputation. I think that's a good thing. I think she's working on that, and I think ultimately you'll see her debut, but I don't know when or where, but I would probably venture to say she goes NXT before she goes AEW. Even though her dad's in AEW, I see her going NXT because she's more of that style of wrestler than AEW.
And they actually the NXT will use her a little bit more. And she has a lot of dream matches. And she has a lot of friends over there. Sasha Banks is a person who wanted to, wrestle her. You got, a pretty, but she just has to calm down on the theatrics outside of wrestling, to be honest. That's it.
Yeah, that ditto. Ditto.
I think she's on the next SWE Fury show. All right, guys, thumbs up, thumbs down. Let's go through that real quick here. Thumbs up, thumbs down for the week.
My thumbs up. I love what they did with Nikki Cross on Monday night main event. I love what they did. They gave her a clean win. Even though NXT was pre-recorded, I love that they have Samoa Joe on the mean streak. My thumbs up. Thumbs down. Kind of don't like what AEW is going with the John Moxley thing, but it's to be seen. And I don't like how they another thumbs down was the whole Cody Rhodes and how Malachi Black kind of made him retire. I think that he deserves an actual retirement match.
Johnathan?
So thumbs down. I'm gonna start with thumbs down. Monday Night Raw to me was just pretty awful. It was almost unwatchable. Somebody said it in the comments. It was just really, really tough to get engaged in any of it, right? And then we saw that Karrion Kross lost again. So that's 2 losses for him leading up to his, championship match with Samoa Joe. It makes Samoa Joe just seem weak, even if he beats him, right? So thumbs down with that. Not a big fan with that. Thumbs up. I actually did like Malachi Black's debut. I felt like it was great. I felt like the crushing was great. His intro was amazing. When you give somebody creative control, man, I mean, it's amazing what these guys can come up with. And so that's another thing. And thumbs up, right? I don't like seeing anybody obviously lose their job, but thumbs up for Bray Wyatt leaving WWE. Hopefully, this is obviously a personal opinion. I hope he goes to WWE because this man's creative is on another level. So I just want to see his creative go free. So that's my thumbs up and thumbs down.
All right, I'm gonna start with my thumbs down. It's kind of thumbs up, thumbs down. I guess a thumb in the middle, and it's the Nikki Cross match again as well. I was good. I was happy to see her win because again, a champion winning is something new apparently in WWE because they don't like doing that a whole lot, especially on TV. But the fact this is the only issue I had. It was an anything goes match, and it was a pretty clean pin. You had Charlotte beat her easily the week before. I figured they would use something with the weapons or a table or something to get her that win in that match. And I just thought it could have been booked a little differently to where Nikki can get the win, but maybe she needed a table or something like that. I didn't see that. So that was my thumb in the middle there. WWE Cup Bray Wyatt. Like, what was that one? Sorry.
I was just put some comments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, thumbs up. Another thumbs down would be Raw as well. I think the wrestling is good. If you go with the in-ring action, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just nothing there to keep you wanting to watch, and there's so many damn rematches, man. Good God, book something different, man.
Stop having them chase around the 24/7 title all the time. They have guys like there that should be wrestling. Have these guys fight for contendership. Have them put them in a tournament, right? Have a tournament where you can feature these guys. Put them in 10, 15-minute matches. I don't want to see 2-minute matches. I don't want to see 3-minute matches. Give me a good 7, 8-minute match. We had, John Morrison versus, slipping my head right now, and then it went into or Damian Priest, and then it became a tag team match. They could have gave us 15 minutes of a good tag team match instead of splitting it up. And this match could have been built. There could have been a story through the match. I feel like they're doing a really bad, they're not building the matches like they should. And like you said, too many rematches and not enough featuring some of the up and comers.
Yeah, and I thought with it being back in front of a live audience, it would get better. It hasn't yet. Hopefully, they're trying to get to SummerSlam and then reset. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
thumbs up.
They do have the draft right after.
Yeah, they moved it to October.
October now,
a little
right?
bit, yeah. But yeah, again, I mean, maybe they're just trying to limp to the finish line there and then reset from there and see how it goes. Reggie is my thumbs up. Also, I just think, man, what they're doing with him is fantastic, and I think he can go.
He can wrestle though.
Oh, dude, he can do some.
He has moves.
Raw's becoming something you watch real quick before a bathroom break. I think Raw's becoming the bathroom break. What it is becoming. Is the bathroom break there, Nap God. Guys, final comments so we can get out of here.
I'm curious to see Friday night where they go at the Reigns saga. Obviously curious to see what's going to happen with AEW in the next couple of weeks. Because, like I said, if Punk comes back, he's one of my favorite guys to watch on TV. So I'm excited if and when he comes back. So that's one of the things. And I'm also curious, even though I know the outcome, I'm also curious to see if WWE lets Bobby Lashley destroy Goldberg.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I'm looking forward to tomorrow, right? I do love the John Cena and the Roman Reigns promos. I feel like they're doing a good job with that. I love what Seth Rollins and Edge are doing. Friday nights are the best nights of WWE, right? Monday nights are awful, and I can't bring myself to care about Tuesday nights because every time they go to the main roster, they get killed. So I'm looking forward to Friday night. I'm looking forward to next week. It's the debut of Rampage, and we're going to get 2 days of AEW, which is on TV at least, which is I am itching for that very much so. So very much excited. I want to shout out my dude Nap God in the comments. Appreciate you joining us. And shout out to Kervin. Shout out to Anthony. Thanks for giving us some topics to discuss as well. And yeah, man, appreciate and TMSFN. Appreciate you as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing AEW 2 shows. Unfortunately, we'll get one before we do. So the first full Rampage would probably be there or 2 weeks from now when we're discussing that. But they got to do something with Raw. Raw's got to be changed, and that's where I'll stand on that hill. I'll die on that hill. Raw needs to change. But for
needs an overhaul.
Yeah, Jaccare Givens, you can check him out at KingJock24 on Twitter. Or Johnathan Ramlakan is at 3-Piece Combo, the word 3, THREE, Piece Combo, and I'm at Sean_Stanley11. I wish I could remember my own Twitter handle, and apparently I could not.
Hey,
What?
Sean, man. Hey, Sean, I want to give you a shout out, though, man. You do such fabulous work with the network, and you have the best voice I've ever seen and personally knew, man. So I appreciate everything you've done, everything you do, and I obviously appreciate you being a part of this show, man.
I got a tear coming down, man. Why you do that, Mateo? Why you doing that, Jaccare, man? Oh, man. For Jaccare, Johnathan, I am Sean Stanley. We'll see you here 9 o'clock or 9:10, right? We're doing 9:10, guys?
Yeah.
9:10.
9:10.
We'll make it 9:10 p.m. Eastern right here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Till then, in the words of the great Gordon Soley, so long from the Sunshine State.